Now, how are you today?
Hi, I'm fantastic. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being with me today. Thanks for joining this podcast episode or interview, whatever. Should we start with a brief question just to warm up?
Mm-hmm.
I have visited your YouTube channel really often because I'm also trying to keep up with the newest updates on all the tools and Adobe package and others. So you post a lot of videos with tools from Adobe package, and what are other applications and tools you make tutorials on?
So I think a lot of my tutorials are geared around, as you say, the Adobe suite, because that's just what I started with back when I was like 16 years old. I've used Sketch as well, which is really good for UI UX design. But there's so many other little things like InVision is fantastic for collaborating on projects with clients or with teams. Oh God, there's so many. Trello, that's another good one. I don't know if you use that. It's where you can just create like lots of different cards and organize them in categories. So for someone like me who's creating content, I can just create lots of different categories for the different types of content I create, and then these big long lists of videos that I need to record, and then I can add notes to them, and that's a really good way to just organize the chaos that can be planning a schedule of content.
Yeah, I heard of that, and as I remember it correctly, I've even tried to use it. It's something like a to-do list or a planner. It helps you to plan things, and it's really cool.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's really useful.
So you have tutorials even on Trello, right?
I've got lists of things that I plan on recording. So because I've got the app on my smartphone as well, it means that, I could be in a cafe or anywhere and I'll think of an idea for a video. So I can just quickly add it on my phone, and then it just adds it to the list. So when I'm kind of setting up to record, I can go through that list of ideas that I've just pulled together throughout, the last few days or weeks, and just kind of cherry pick what ones I want to really work on. Yeah, because inspiration and ideas can just come at any time, so it's handy to be able to have something to jot it down on.
Yeah, that's right. Also, on your homepage on YouTube, on the main page, you have a video where you tell about that you stopped working with clients to devote all your free time to making tutorials on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's pretty exciting, and not many YouTube creators, like designers or graphic designers, web designers, all the professionals, not many of them decide to make this step. What made you, switch from working with clients to teaching?
Oh, that's a question. So I've been in the industry for about 12 years, and for about 8 of those years, I've been running my own business on the side. So I had my day job, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. But then I would go home, and I've spent a lot of time working with my own clients, which enabled me to go freelance back in 2009, I think it was. So I've had a lot of time working with clients, and of course, when you work with clients, you have great relationships, and they can be brilliant. And sometimes you get more challenging clients that are a bit harder to work with. And I think I just reached a point where I wanted to just create things. Like, I'm a creator. I like creating, and working to a brief is cool, but just working to anything that I can come up with in my head, like being able to wake up and just create anything that I can think of, that's where I knew that I just wanted to go. And it was a pretty big step, actually, because I was very dependent on, income from client projects. That was the main source of my income. And YouTube was a lot smaller. But so it was a bit of a kind of a risk to do that, and to sort of just pretty much just stop client work altogether. But then what I did was I just increased the amount of content I was outputting, in the hope that if I made more content, I would be able to make more through things like ads, and essentially just try and grow the channel enough quickly before I went out of business. And it seems to be going all right so far. So
That's good that you're satisfied with the results of your decision.
yeah.
So wish you luck.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is, that's not a secret that back then when you were just starting in web design world, in graphic design world, things were really different from what they are now. So the beginning designers may think, oh, there are so many professionals on the market. And as a beginning designer, what can I suggest? How can I find a client? Why would the client choose me over the other professional designers who can do it better? So there are so many concerns the beginning designers have. What would you advise? How to, how not to be afraid to step in this world?
I think whether it's trying to get your first client as a freelancer, or whether you're trying to get your first job, the reality is that it's very difficult. When you get your foot in the door and you get that first client, you get that first job, you're going to produce something, whether it's going to a job and working 8 hours a day, where you're learning and you're creating work, or whether you're working on a project for that first client. Once you get that first client, it becomes a lot easier to get that next client or that next job. So it gets easier the more you do. I think when it comes to that first client, the best advice I can give is just hang in there. It isn't easy. If it was really easy, everyone would be doing it. And a lot of people give up. Don't give up. Just keep going. And because it took me a while to get my first client on a freelancing platform. And I got that first client, and I just made sure that the work was just amazing and they were super happy. So I got a really good review. And then because I had that one review, the next client that looked at my profile saw I had a good review, and I got another one. And then it kind of adds up gradually over time. So just make sure that that client has a really great experience with you as well. So whether it's kind of email communication, the design that you're working on, if you talk to them on the phone, just make sure they have a fantastic experience and want to use you again. And yeah, just create awesome work, create awesome relationships with people, and it will all come back. It will all come back to you. You put in the work, and someone somewhere will maybe recommend you, or they'll see your work on a portfolio site, or you never know. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think yes, because the hardest part of any enterprise is to begin, and you never know until you try, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think educate yourself as well. Anyone can come up with these fantastic ideas, but if you don't know the software to be able to create that idea, it's going to be a lot harder. So if you're using Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever it is you're using, just learn as much as you can about the software through tutorials, because you can get them free online, and then you can just create whatever you can think of.
Right. And also, speaking about education, now there are, maybe every couple years a new tool or a new application for designing comes up. And creators have to continually upgrade their skills and learn something new. So what would you say as I would say top creator in the niche for now?
Thank you.
What would you say, what should beginning designers start with while starting to learn how to do design? What are the trending tools and skills on the market right now? What are the tools the beginning designer should learn at first?
I think if it's purely design, things like, as I say, I use the Adobe Creative Suite mostly. So Photoshop, Illustrator, XD, that's been out for a little while now. Something like those are probably, if it was kind of web design, I'd recommend doing something like that. XD is super easy to learn. You could learn everything you need to in about an hour. And then you could just start creating, apps or websites, or things like Photoshop, Illustrator. They've been around a lot longer, so they've got a lot more features. So they might seem a bit more intimidating to learn if you're someone who's new to them. But as I say, again, you can jump on YouTube, find tons of tutorials for learn the basics of Photoshop, Illustrator. and people will kind of take you through it, covering the basics so it's not as intimidating.
Yeah, okay, I see.
But I think, yeah, the Adobe Suite's what I use mostly. I mean, I mentioned sort of InVision and Trello, and there are other things, but just learning the main software packages is what I would recommend the most.
Great, thanks. Also, I've prepared a really brief questionnaire for you as a person who has experienced working both as a freelancer and having a full-time job, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I'm technically self-employed now. I don't have a full-time job. I work my own full-time job, essentially.
Well, something of that sort.
Yeah.
So what do you prefer better? Doing freelancing work or working a full-time day, like a full-time job?
Oh, freelancing, definitely.
Why is it so?
So I worked a full-time job for, I forget how many years now, 8 years maybe. Yeah, about 8 years. And because I was doing the freelancing on the side, I always knew that I wanted to do my own thing. And I think I got to a place where I just was working at a company where I wasn't able to create and perform to the best of my ability. I just wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't in an environment where I could just create awesome designs. And someone who I worked with, who's a really good friend, he left. And that just made me realize that I wasn't happy where I was, and I left. And since then, I've just never looked back. It was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And that's why I love the freedom. I love the freedom it brings. So
probably the your next answer will be, I can predict your next answer, because the next pair of options is remote work versus working at the office. Since you like freedom, so probably your choice will be the remote work, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's a tricky question, because I've spent a lot of time now working on my own in my own office, and so I would like to work at an office again, but I'd like it to be my office with other people, which I think I may have just answered another question.
Well, it goes. It's still great. Thank you. So yeah, the next question actually was, what do you prefer better, working with a team or by yourself? And you said that the team is always better. Could you explain why do you think so?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with, when I did leave my last full-time job, the team I worked with was fantastic. Like the small design team, I got on with everyone really well. And I've worked on my own now, my own office, for about 3 to 4 years, and you just get a bit lonely on your own. You can't really have a laugh and joke around with people when you're on your own. So I would like to work with a team at some point in the future. Just because it just gets a bit boring being on your own. There's only so much Netflix that you can watch before you just kind of would like a bit of human interaction in a day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%, because to get to enjoy the work, sometimes you need the communication with people, just to be to get good emotions, like get vibes from other people. It's really important.
Exactly.
And also, exchanging ideas sometimes helps to create something better than when you're working by yourself.
Right? Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and the next pair of options is working in the daytime or at night. What do you prefer?
I wish I was a morning person, but I'm not. I always, my mind comes alive at nighttime, which is really inconvenient sometimes because I need to go to sleep. So so I think I set up my first Shopify store at, I think it was like midnight, because I just got to midnight and decided I had to make a store and start selling things online. I know you can't choose. I just decided at 12 o'clock that I needed to do it there and then. So I didn't get much sleep that night, but you gotta, sometimes inspiration just happens and you just have to go with it.
Yeah, I see. So in your case, working with the team may be a little bit tricky, because you need a team who will catch up with your schedule. You have to be on the same page.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked out how it's going to work yet, I'll be honest, but
You never know until you try, right?
well,
Again,
exactly, yeah.
the same rule. Also, what other YouTube channels or maybe some podcasts or blogs on the internet do you follow? Maybe no, I mean on the designing, where you get inspiration, all that.
I think a lot of my inspiration now as a content creator comes from other YouTubers. So there's channels that I've followed and watched tons of videos on, and I've learned so much about myself, both personally and professionally, that, I mean, just to throw a few names out there, there's channels like The Future, which is run by Christo, which is absolutely brilliant. That's had a huge impact on me in so many ways. Roberto Blake, Tutvid, who does loads of tutorials. Pix Imperfect does loads of Photoshop tutorials. Flern, again, more Photoshop tutorials. And in fact, there's so many other channels that I've watched videos of, but I just can't recall the names now. There's so many. Just from having like a problem or a question that I want an answer to, you type it into YouTube, and there's just so much information out there, and it's all free. And
Yeah. And this is what is great about trying to become a designer these days, because you can find so many free resources to learn from.
Yeah, like loads. Like just find people that you aspire to be, like people who are kind of doing similar things to you, but maybe like, I don't know, 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead, and just, you know, just learn from those people, learn from the people who have got years doing it. I think that's probably the best advice.
Wow, I have just thought that it probably was really, really hard for people to learn something like that, like designing or something creative, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. How was that? Where could you find some resources? Where could you learn from
10
these
or
days back
15
then?
years ago. Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, how long have I been in the industry? I've been in the industry for 12 years. So I think when I started, it was a mix of following tutorials. Yeah, YouTube wasn't even around then, I don't think. Yeah, so it was kind of just like searching the internet, and there were a lot more blog posts, tutorials in that kind of written picture format, and a lot of it was just fiddling around with the software, like just experimenting. Like when I remember a friend showed me some of the filters and effects you could do in Photoshop to kind of like distort people's faces, and for some reason I found that really amusing, and I just kind of fell in love with Photoshop, and I just couldn't stop playing around with it. And from messing around with it and just having fun, I actually learned how to use it more and more whilst doing like the odd sort of tutorials. I mean, I guess books. There were books back then, so
Wow, really? Books?
yeah.
Were there books teaching how to use Photoshop?
Oh,
Really?
there must have been. Yeah, I didn't read any of
Oh
them
my.
personally. I was no, I was much more go on Google and type how to do something and find a blog post. But I think, yeah, back then that probably would have been the best way. I mean, going back beyond that, not really sure.
Okay, thanks. And probably the last question, just to wrap this interview up, will be what are your plans for the nearest future? Maybe some huge upcoming projects, maybe some just ideas which you haven't even tried to implement, but you would really like to. So, what are they? What do you plan to do in the nearest future?
There's a couple of things that I'm working on that I can't actually talk about at the moment, unfortunately. But they are really exciting, and I think just build. I guess build my brand, build the channel, and I mean, there's so many more things that I want to talk about. You know, at the moment, I'm becoming known as this tutorial channel. There's so many more things that I can bring to the platform. So it's just, I guess, finding the time, maybe getting a team together, and just really kind of upping the production of what I'm doing
And
without going into too many details.
okay, I see. That's understandable, absolutely. Are you planning to get back to working with clients at some point in the future? Working on orders, or maybe having another full-time job?
Never say never, but it's unlikely, because the amount of, I think I've got too many ideas for myself that I want to bring to life. So sometimes it's nice to work on a client project, because it's just nice to get stuck into like a really interesting project. But at the same time, I also like working on my own projects. So it's, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, sometimes working on clients' orders cannot give you enough space for creativity, because sometimes they have some requirements. I want this, I want that, and just have to follow what the client wants.
Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's in kind of a negative side. So it was really brief, and I would really love to talk to you one more time, maybe in the future when you have something exciting to share.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you for joining me today. I had a great time.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for having me.
It was really interesting talking to you.
Oh, cheers.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Alexandra.
Bye.
Bye.